when we talked about what is the vision and national service, I think it does not begin or should not begin at the high school level. I think it needs to go to the primary school level.
Leveraging and launching our creative industries in the country.
That's gotten mixed reviews.
Well, I think what got mixed reviews is not the concept, but the labeling.
What we do today will affect those coming after us.
Violence and weapons in schools a major concern for national security officials.
Hopefully, we'll have the matter under better control.
A reformed gangster talks about the new culture of violence.
So you see how it just snowballs.
Plus, a look at Independence decorations.
But just to put something in your home that represents your country.
I'm Nakia DeVoe, and this is NV12 Weekend. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us this Saturday here at Cable 12 Studios. Officials from the Ministry of National Security and the Royal Bahamas Police Force are concerned about the findings of another study of high school students which revealed new statistics of violence and weapons on school grounds. They say they're determined to address this troubling trend. Christina McNeil has the story.
The Bahamas Secondary School Drug Survey 2011 assessed 2,600 students from 44 educational institutions across 7 islands. That study reveals that 18.2% of the surveyed students carried a weapon, a gun, or a knife on one or more days in the 30 days leading up to the survey. The study further revealed that when it comes to students taking weapons on campus, 10.4% of students carried a weapon onto school grounds on more than one occasion. According to Minister of National Security Dr. Bernard Nottage, the statistics are concerning. He says now that some of the issues have been identified, his ministry can better tackle them with the help of the Ministry of Education.
We are in discussions with the Ministry of Education at all times. The question of weapons being carried on to the school campuses is a matter of concern for us, but I am happy to say that with the police in the schools and with the security officers at the schools, this year has been relatively satisfactory compared with previous years. Now that we have the study and we know what the issues are, we are seeking to address them individually so that in the next school year, or the next time we have a survey, which should be next year, that hopefully we'll have the matter under better control.
The report also revealed that male students were more likely than female students to carry a weapon. 27.4% of male students said they carried a weapon, compared to 9.4% of females. Dr. Nottage says the aim is to build better relationships between young people and the police so they feel comfortable coming forward to report violence and weapons. But he notes that some students are exposed to those issues at a very young age based on the environment they're growing up in.
You have to understand that many of these children come from communities where they have the feel that they have to carry weapons to protect themselves. And that's why this whole question of conflict resolution, anger management, getting people, exposing them to the police so that they know that there's someone to whom they can go to make a complaint without being afraid of the police. That's a very important part of the whole process. So,
Commissioner of Police Ellison Greenslade says while the statistics are disturbing, society should focus on engaging young people and encouraging them. He says the Ministry of National Security has the full support of police in that effort.
But we need to be careful when we speak to weapons that we don't form conclusions and we're misguided. That could be any number of things. And so I don't want to speak too pointedly to it except to say wherever support is given in terms of telling us what is in fact happening out there, we're appreciative and we're willing to work along with programs that are going to hopefully improve things.
Nottage says his ministry intends to keep police stationed at and around schools to create a safer environment for students and teachers.
That was our Christina McNeil reporting on violence in schools and what national security officials plan to do to address it. A reformed gangbanger and drug dealer who is now a professor and author is devoting his life to examining just what is so alluring about thug life and why it sucks in so many young men every year. In this report, Paige McCartney tells us how incarceration was a nightmare, blessing, and a learning experience for Dr. Anthony Dixon, a professor at Florida A&M University and Tallahassee Community College. He has a message for young men in the Bahamas in this report.
Dr. Anthony Dixon is a specialist in thug life, and that's because he has lived and felt the consequences of the criminal hustle. Growing up in the 80s in the South, Dixon said a culture for young black men was invented: baggy clothes, shorts that hung down low, wearing just one suspender. He said what started out as innocent self-expression was adopted by the criminal element, shoving young black men into a stereotype that was hard to break. Recounting his own experience of being sucked into this lifestyle, Dixon said that's how the so-called culture of thug life was started and snowballed out of control.
You start doing simple things. For me, it started out as simple as taking marijuana and then selling it to a few friends. And before I knew it, it went from marijuana to crack. Now I was selling crack. Then I go back to marijuana, and then I start getting large quantities. And so a deal goes bad when I go out of town. My partner, deal goes bad with him. I come back into town, and I owe people over $3,000. And I'm a quote-unquote starving college student owing someone $3,000 for drugs. And so from that point, I stopped selling drugs, and I started robbing other drug dealers. So you see how it just snowballs.
But according to Dixon, who has written a book about his life and experiences, the term and idea of thug life is a myth that has infiltrated to the Bahamas, contributing to the national crime problem. He was brought in by Gladys Johnson Sands, the CEO of a marketing firm, to share his story with the Bahamas and discourage young men and women from falling prey to this made-up notion of a thug life.
Well, this whole thug life, it isn't just drug dealing. We can't just throw everything on drugs. It's the whole lifestyle. Rape has now be a part of it. Extortion. Extortion is now becoming a new wave in the United States now. People are getting to know people, getting to know personal things about them, and then using it against them and extorting them. We even getting to the point where they are committing crimes with people not even knowing that they're getting ready to commit the crime. But because you were right there with them, you're considered an accomplice. So now they have something on you, and they use that. So you see, it's not just selling drugs, it's that whole lifestyle that opens up to all types of criminal activity.
Dixon said the biggest myth about thug life is that you can do crime and suffer no consequences, or that you can go to jail and return to a normal life afterward. He said that's where many young men get confused. In his book, Up From Incarceration, Volume 1, Dispelling the Myths of Thug Life, Dixon explores the mentality of young men in particular who enter a life of crime.
And what we're finding and what we see is that young people are accepting these things because basically these are the fastest ways to get what they want, because the end justifies the means, and their self-worth is the only thing that's really at stake. So they'll snatch that gold chain, they'll kill you over those new LeBron James shoes, because those shoes are now equivalated with their self-worth, and there's nothing a person won't do for their own self-worth. So what we have to do is bring young people in, and we say nothing's wrong with these pieces of material culture, nothing wrong with these things. The problem is, do not put your self-worth into these things.
Dixon said the desire for the thug life and the materialistic things that young people find self-value in is spurred on by society becoming more accepting to diminished self-worth. Dixon blames the media for perpetuating that.
I will put most of it on the media for spreading it so far and having that the concept of thug life being so far reached out into the world. I blame the media for that and their glorification of that type of lifestyle. It was first, of course, glorified through rap music, but now it's on television as well. We spoke just a little while ago about the 2 television shows that are out now that are glorifying drug dealing now. They basically saying if your back is against the wall, you got insurmountable debt that is not your fault, then it's okay to enter into this type of lifestyle now. So now they're making excuses for it.
Despite being incarcerated for 5.5 years between his undergraduate and graduate degrees, Dixon went on to earn his PhD from Indiana University. He is also the president and co-founder of the Archival and Historical Research Associates and a historian and archivist for the John G. Riley Museum. For MB12, I'm Paige McCartney.
A 4-year-old boy is dead and police are trying to find out what happened. Crime reports indicate that the child, a resident of Blue Hill Road South, was taken to hospital where he was pronounced dead yesterday morning. There are no other details about the toddler's death, and we're told by officers that they're still investigating the circumstances. NB12 will continue to follow the story and bring you the latest updates in a later newscast. In other news, the issue of shanty towns throughout the Bahamas is always a hot-button topic, and it's once again making headline news following a recent government report. But the Free National Movement says that the Minister of Environment's recent statement that there will be a crackdown on shanty towns is all talk. Party Chairman Darren Cash says he doesn't believe the government will follow through with its promise to address the issue. Referring to the fire at Mackey Yard in southwestern New Providence a few years ago, Cash said afterwards the Ingram administration sought to provide housing for those shantytown residents who have a right to live in the Bahamas by providing low-cost housing for those affected by the fire. Cash pointed out that the PLP vehemently opposed that policy, and now he's curious to see what policy the party will implement to address the issue of subpar illegal homes.
The PLP decided their approach to that problem would be to stir up public discontent and outrage about the possibility of illegal persons getting public land for cheap. Well, now that the new report has come out and it is said to them, look, there are people in these communities who have legal standing in this country, and so you cannot ship them anywhere. You now have to find a solution for their living problems or their issues with finding a place to live. We have yet, after 1 month of bluster from the Minister of the Environment, to hear exactly what it is they are going to do.
In fact, Cash said the recent investigation to determine the state and the number of shanty towns in the Bahamas was a complete waste of time.
Before the last general election, the PLP was well aware of the extent of challenges caused by shanty towns in the country. They didn't need a new investigation to tell them anything. The Speaker of the House, no less a person, never let up on the FNM for the need to do something about this problem. Well, now they are in power and now they have to act.
The FNM chairman said now that the government has conducted its exercise, it must now come face to face with reality and actually do something about the need to find homes for those migrants who live in those shanty towns and are legitimate residents of the Bahamas.
I will be surprised if they do, because their general approach is stir up discontent, get Bahamians mad at non-Bahamians or illegals. But now they are in the seat of decision making, where a decision to provide properties to persons at concessionary rates will or have the capacity to stir up a lot of anger in the community. Are they prepared to do that which is in the best interest of the country? We'll have to wait and see.